Hello and welcome to the podcast all about becoming a health coach. I'm Megan McCrory, a health coach in training at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Each week I recap what we've learned and how I'm applying all those lessons in my life. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm very happy that you found the podcast and a special welcome to you. You may want to go back and listen from the beginning to hear more about my health coaching journey. Let's dive right into episode 19. This week, we cover module 16 in the course. We are learning more about coaching through primary food, specifically in the area of relationships, and also using the Circle of Life tool. The guest speaker this module was Andrea Beeman. Now, I first talked about her in episode 3 and again in episode 11, so she is definitely a repeat guest lecturer, and I like her energy. She's nice to listen to. She is a former IIN student and has built quite a big business for herself. So I actually do know someone in real life that has met her. So maybe someday I'll get to meet Andrea Beeman as well. Her lecture was called Health is Wealth, and she had some really great quotes and some general overall theme of investing in your health. The first thing she said that hit home for me was that, quote, chronic diseases are common but not normal for humans. We've accepted it as normal. So I've heard this sentiment before when relating humans to other animals. Like, firstly, you don't hear of wild animals having heart disease or other stress-related diseases. Why? Well, because wild animals eat according to what they're supposed to eat in the wild. At a zoo or aquarium, if you've ever taken a tour or you talk to anybody, you see that each animal has a specific diet to meet their needs. Humans are only different in that is that we have available to us and we're marketed or bombarded to us all kinds of food, and I'm going to call them food-like products that were never meant to be eaten. So, think about it. If we didn't have grocery stores or restaurants, we would eat drastically different, and we would have overall less chronic diseases because of it. Her next I would call it a great quote was, sickness doesn't happen overnight, and wellness doesn't happen overnight. This is the first thing we should tell ourselves. Always tell yourself first, but we should also be telling our future clients. This is one of the reasons that the Institute for Integrative Nutrition teaches a 6-month program for students. It takes time to heal the body, right? If you're 30 years old, it took 30 years to get to the point where you are. Now, hopefully it doesn't take 30 years to get you to optimal health, but it is going to take some time to heal. And the body will heal itself when given, the opportunity and the chance. But you need to give your body the right food, the right amount of rest, the right amount of activity in order to heal. If an animal somehow gets sick, they go, they sleep, they fast, they heal themselves. Animals don't. I'm not talking about pets. I'm talking about wild animals. So think about it this way. Your body will heal itself. You just have to give it the right ingredients to do that. Andrea Beeman gives us the best ways to invest in your health, meaning the best ways to spend your money to benefit your health. Okay, so this was again on her health is wealth type of a topic. She basically says it's quite simple. The best thing you can do for your health is to eat organic, clean, and naturally raised foods. Everything we eat becomes us on a cellular level. I'll say that again. Everything we eat becomes us on a cellular level. So do you really want a pesticide that's designed to kill bugs, getting into your cells and messing up stuff? Humans are bigger than bugs, so it's just going to take more time to kill you. So pesticides do not belong inside of our body. This is, I think, the point she's driving home. And I have to admit that I am not perfect. I am not super great at buying all organic, clean, naturally raised foods. I did recently try out a service called farmy.ch. This is based out of Switzerland, where I live. They gather food from within Switzerland from farmers and other organic producers and deliver the goods to your door. Now, it's a great service. The food is good. It's just about the same cost as going to the local grocery store, but I know exactly from which farm I ordered that product from, and you can see where the farm is, how the people who are farming it, you could probably go visit them if you wanted to. I think it's kind of like the modern equivalent to local farmer market if you don't have a local farmer market in your area. So in the US and in other countries, you can join what's called a local community supported agricultural farm. So this is typically called a CSA in the US. I'm not sure if they call them CSAs somewhere else, but anyway, at least in the US, you can go check out localharvest.org, and you can find a CSA near you, and you essentially sign up and you get baskets or food weekly or whatever, however they do it. And then you're supporting your local farm. And this is nice, right? I'm lucky that in Europe, we have local farmers markets open daily year round. And it does come down in the end to changing my own personal habits. I am just used to walking down the street to my local grocery because that's what I do, buying my food and walking home. It's just as easy for me to get my bulk foods at a bulk food store when I go out for lunch. I just have to do the extra step of planning, a little bit ahead to put the container in my bag for the day. Or, hopping online and ordering from Farmy.ch. I'm also still interested in signing up for a local CSA here in Switzerland because I really like the idea of visiting the farm, meeting the people that grow the food, supporting the local economy, and all that in addition to the fact that I get to eat really good in-season food grown locally, which is better for my allergies because I have seasonal allergies living in Switzerland. Since I've lived in Switzerland, I've gotten season allergies. For all of those reasons, that's why it's on my to-do list. Now, some people, including myself, look at the cost of organic and are immediately put off. Like, why should I spend $3 on organic strawberries when I can get the other ones for $2, right? It's really amazing how we view our finances, isn't it? You don't think twice about a $6 latte or sushi or something else, or even like a $600 new smartphone, right? But an extra $1 for organic strawberries? No, can't do that. And I see it. I believe it comes down to not being able to really see or taste a difference between the two. You buy organic, it tastes the same as you buy the non-organic. So you're thinking to yourself, what's the point in putting an extra $1 into my mouth, right? They look the same, they taste the same, but what you're getting is actually what you're not getting. When you buy organic, you get the lack of pesticides. So even though it may be nutritionally the same, by having the reduction of those pesticides, herbicides, producing or farming in a sustainable way, you're not getting those pesticides into your body. So think about the organic paying for what you don't want, which is the pesticides. Now, if you're not already on the organic bandwagon, maybe I can convince you just to switch to the organic for just the Dirty Dozen. Now, if you haven't heard of the Dirty Dozen, these are the top 12 foods that have the most pesticide contact in the produce section. Okay, it's done every year. They test all of the foods, and foods that have the highest amount of pesticides are on the Dirty Dozen list. So remember, pesticides cannot be washed off easily. For fruit like strawberries, there are no protective barrier between the fresh fruit, between the fruit flesh and the pesticide. So the pesticide is absorbed into the fruit. So you can't wash it off. So if you're interested in the Dirty Dozen, I'll leave a link to a handy printout of the Dirty Dozen in the show notes for this episode number 19. Check it out. Andrea's last point is to encourage your clients and maybe yourself that you are worth every dollar that you put into your body. Okay? There are so many ways to save money, but eating subpar food should not be one of them, because at the basis of everything is your health and your body. If you don't have those things, life is not as good as it could be, right? Okay, let's move now to coaching through primary food. So the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or called IIN for short, teaches the concept of primary and secondary foods. The secondary foods are what you eat, drink, you inhale, ingest. This is what we first think of when we talk about nutrition and feeding the body. Primary foods are all your physical activity, your career, your spirituality, your relationships. These are also required to nourish your body, your mind, and your soul. There's a popular phrase in the school is that you can eat a perfect diet for your body, but if you are unhappy with your job, you're in a toxic relationship, you're not moving your body, or you don't know what your purpose in life is, you're not going to be really truly healthy or happy. So IIN does a great job in teaching all about the different dietary theories, but it also does a great job in teaching us how to coach through those primary foods. Specifically for this module, we concentrated on coaching through the primary food relationships. Nutrition is a bit of a dry subject for a lot of people. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably are fascinated about nutrition if you're interested in becoming a health coach. But be it as it may, a lot of people don't care to know about nutrition and they don't find it interesting. People don't want to think about what they eat. They just want to eat good food and they want to be satisfied. Right? So primary food, when it's balanced though and satiated, allows life to feed you, right? If you think about the last time you were doing something all day, you were having fun, you were with someone you really enjoyed, you were doing something that you really cared about, and did you think about food? Did you think about what you were going to eat? Typically, when we're in those places where we're, super engaged in what we're doing and happy, a lot of times you forget until your stomach starts to rumble. Oh yeah, I need to eat something, right? It's not the first thing on your mind. So you can see that when your primary food is out of balance and your life is not feeding you, a lot of times the root to many of those secondary food issues is rooted in primary food issues. So getting those primary foods in a good place allows you to make better secondary food decisions and not focus on it so much. Focus on living your life, right? So coaching through primary foods can seem very intimidating for people, but IIN gives us 6 tips for helping us use primary food in coaching sessions. The first is to trust your intuition. I would say most people have pretty good intuition. And if you feel comfortable talking with your client about relationships and about these primary food topics, then do it. If you feel like that you're not in the right relationship yet with your client, you're not to that level yet, don't talk about it yet. Stick with the nutrition, stick with the eat vegetables, drink water, get sleep, general rules of thumb, and wait until you feel like you're ready to talk about those topics with your client. For me, I think it was maybe halfway through my sessions with my first client where I finally got to the root of, emotional eating and work not being the best place for them. And, so it took me quite a little bit of time to really go back to those primary foods and say, like, listen, we can try all you want to, stop binge eating or whatever, but the root of that emotional eating is stress at work, right? So you need to make sure that you don't keep going around in a vicious circle, focusing only on the nutrition, but get back to why. Why is it happening? What's the trigger? So trust your intuition. That's the first thing. Number 2 is embrace the gray. I'm assuming, embrace the gray zone. It's never going to be clear cut. It's never going to be a textbook. This is my problem. This is how we solve it. We did it. Check mark. It's never going to be that nice and clean cut. If it is, you can write about it and then it becomes a case study. But most of the time, it's going to have some gray zones. So work with those gray zones. Number 3 is to come back to the circle of life. Now, I've talked about the circle of life in previous episodes, but just to refresh, the circle of life is a tool, and I will link to it in the show notes. This tool allows a person to evaluate different areas in their life that are linked with their primary food, and then evaluate their current level of satisfaction with each of those areas. So you can print this out and try it for yourself. Use the circle to kind of identify the different areas that you'd like to work on. Keep a copy of that somewhere in your journal, online, it doesn't matter where. And in 6 months, do it again without looking at the first one, and then see how does your circle change over time. It's amazing. It's really fun to see where you were unsatisfied with something and you make a priority effort to fix that or work on it, and then the next time you look at it, it's better. It's fun. Number 4 is to remember that everything is connected, as I mentioned already before. If you have someone who's doing some emotional eating because every time their kids throw a temper tantrum or whatever, and they need to de-stress, and then they reach for something they know they're not supposed to, right? It's connected. Everything's connected. So make sure you keep that in mind, to not try to put things into a silo, but really ask those high mileage questions and get to the point of the trigger. A lot of things are habitual, right? So try to find the trigger to that habit and see where you can start to change the habit. Number 5 is to let your clients lead, okay? Notice the first and last thing that they say, right? And pay attention to the tangents that they kind of go on. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, especially the last episode. You really need to let the client manage the session. Where do they want it to go and what do they want to do? Don't push coaching through primary foods if they really are interested in talking about, how fat works in the body, which, by the way, I've never had anybody ask me. They are more interested about the primary foods, but let's say they're interested about nutrition and they're hot on this topic. That doesn't mean you have to go into primary foods for that session. Let the client figure out what they want to talk about. And the last thing, number 6, is to notice and tune into your client's nonverbal cues. I think this is, without saying, this is something you should do with every conversation you have. How is the person focused? Are they pointed towards you, away from you? Are they looking at you in the eyes? Are they twitching or fidgeting or deep sighing? There's a lot of things that the client can do that have nonverbal impact. Coaching through relationships is probably one of the most interesting conversations that you can have with your client, because who doesn't love to talk about relationships, right? Joshua Rosenthal, who lectured on this topic, specifically outlines 5 areas of relationship needs. Those are friendship, love, touch, intimacy, and sex. And when he lectures, he talked about a lot of times people can confuse these 5 things. So for example, someone who needs physical touch, they just need a hug. They need to have a hand held. They need to have some physical touch. They may confuse this with believing that sex is going to satisfy that need. You see how you can confuse those two things. Or maybe somebody is lonely and in need of friendship. Maybe they mistake that for love, for example. So there's a lot of ways that you can mistake these 5 things. And also, you shouldn't believe that one person can give you all 5 of these things either. So this is another thing you should realize, that just because you have a great partner that can provide intimacy and sex, for example, doesn't mean that you don't need friendship from somebody else. So you do need to know that you don't need to have a huge, big social circle, but you do know that you need some of these things from different people, and they can provide it in different ways. So the first thing to do as a health coach is to evaluate those areas for yourself, right? I would never suggest coaching on a topic that you haven't first evaluated for yourself. I think that's part of the fun of being a health coach. And honestly, part of the fun this year is learning more about myself. And then you can actually talk to it a little bit better when you've done this for yourself. So first of all, determine if there are any imbalances in these areas of your life. Again, this is friendship, love, touch, intimacy, and sex. Journal about it. Make a video for yourself to watch later. Record yourself. Somehow document where you are in those areas. Because if you don't document it, it's very difficult to see any shift over time, for better or worse. And pick one of those areas that you'd like to work on and bring that into balance. Then list 3 healthy but simple action steps that you can take to increase your satisfaction in one of those areas. So, for example, if your area of friendships is out of balance, you could consider making a lunch date with a friend. This is something I do all the time. Otherwise, I don't see my friends, and I love having friendships. I love talking with people, and if I don't make time at lunch, so I keep my lunch hours very sacred. I keep my lunch hours specifically for my friends. And, we all have busy lives, but we all stop for lunch. So it's super nice for me to be able to plan lunches every week with my friends, knowing that I'm going to have at least an hour of friendship time talking and catching up with my friends during that time. And I find that if I don't do that, I become very imbalanced in my friendship area. So tell me, what are you going to work on? Okay. In this area, write me an email at becomingahealthcoach@gmail.com or leave me a comment in the show notes at mybestself.fit. I would love to know what you're struggling with and what steps you're taking to work on it. And let's see if we can, help balance out your relationships. The last thing I want to leave you with today is that after the announcement of the 6-month program, the school has been showing us coaching demonstrations in each module. Since this is an online course, it's nice to see some demonstration on how to coach. Of course, most of our modules are video, and then there's some handouts. And of course, there's some audio as well. But it's not exactly like in real life, but Joshua, who's always doing the coaching demonstration, will stop and explain why he asked a specific question and notice how she responded to this or he responded to this. And these coaching demos are quite helpful. And this is primarily one of the ways where I take notes and try the things in my own sessions with my own clients. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that these online courses should have some kind of coaching demonstrations and coaching help for you. So when you're looking to join a specific health coaching school, this is kind of one of the things that you should make sure that they're going to do for you. Okay, so I'll need to stop here for this episode, but join me next time when we will talk about coaching through secondary foods. We're going to look at the integrative nutrition plate. We're going to talk about cravings and food tracking. So please email me at becomingahealthcoach@gmail.com, and links for the resources that I mentioned, check the show notes at mybestself.fit. And thank you again for spending this time with me. I'm Megan McCrory, and you've been listening to How I'm Becoming a Health Coach. Until next time, stay happy and healthy. Hey, you're still listening. Great. Okay, now I can tell you about my 12-week goal setting session. So in this 1-hour session, I'm going to help guide you through a powerful process inspired by the best-selling book, The 12-Week Year. I know. Everybody at this time of the year starts to think about year-long goals. And I would argue that year-long goals are really hard to contextualize. What is going to be happening in a year from now? You have no idea. But 12 weeks gives you a little bit better understanding because you kind of already have your calendar booked out for the next 12 weeks, kind of know what's going to be going on. So if you can focus your goals on the next 12 weeks, you can make some really big actionable steps towards your long-term vision. So in this 1-hour session, we do talk about long-term vision. We talk about where you want to be. We talk about what your 5-year, 10-year, 3-year, all those goals are. But that's only a brief part. We know, we see the long distance view, but let's break that down. And then we get into the 1 to 3 strategic 12-week goals that are going to get you to those long-term vision. Then we're going to put that into a really cool action plan with like checklists and timing and all that jazz to make sure that you are clear and that you have accountability to get those goals done. And then that's not it. Then we are going to tackle your roadblocks because you know you have roadblocks. So we're going to tackle those roadblocks. We're going to create a plan to overcome them. So you know when you start to self-sabotage, you know what you can do to get around those roadblocks. Okay, so if this is interesting for you, it is only 1 hour of your time and it's only 45 Swiss francs. I host this gig over on Fiverr, but I'm also going to put a link down in the show notes. So if you're interested, hit me up.